Hello team and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show where we look at the highs and the lows from the weekend just past in the Premier League. Joining me is a pair of guys who are on natural highs. Well, at least Zach. Joe is sounding very low this morning. Didn't get very much sleep, did you, pal? I'm feeling fresh as a daisy. Joe, what happened to you last night, mate?
I don't know, mate. Just could not sleep. One of those nights where you get about an hour and a half, 2 hours cumulatively.
Just visions of Brendan every time he closed his eyes. Zach, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Bonked my nose. Got a bit of a mark. But, you know, apart from that, stayed at home all weekend, as everyone else should in the UK, under government guidelines.
Very responsible. I like it, mate. Before we dive into the show, a gentle reminder that this is sponsored by our friends over at Manscaped, and you can get 20% off Manscaped's stellar products by using the code on screen right now or clicking the link in the description below. And I was rummaging through the Manscaped box today to try and find something I haven't spoke about. Last week was ball wipes. This week it's the boxers, which I actually do enjoy going jogging in. Have you tried on the Manscaped boxers yet, Zach?
I've not been sent any products.
All right.
I've not been sent any products.
Okay, I will wash mine at 60 degrees and then send them to you, and you can wear them. Okay.
Brilliant.
If you've already used the code, we do appreciate it. It does go directly into funding your favourite shows. Anyway, let's crack on with the talking point, which is Manchester United crashing out of the FA Cup. Now, of course, the Red Devils will beat 3-1 in convincing fashion at the King Power with goals from Kelechi Iheanacho, a.k.a. R9 Reborn, and Yuri Tielemans. It's Leicester's first FA Cup since 1981-82 when Gary Lineker was at the fore. Now, Ollie, he's stumbled at finals stages, hasn't he? He's now lost 4 semi-finals and a quarter-final in his tenure as Manchester United boss. And if they don't win the Europa League, he will finish trophyless for a third campaign at the Red Devils. Joe, slightly rotated lineup. I know how you feel about some of the players on the peripheries at Manchester United, but I wanted to ask you, where did Manchester United lose this game?
Yeah, I think Man United probably lost the game in the midfield, to be honest with you. I think Ndidi and Tielemans were absolutely fantastic, as they have been for most of the campaign, or at least as long as Ndidi's fit. And I thought Fred and Matic were pretty diabolical. Not good enough on the ball at any stage. I wasn't that impressed by either team's forwards. Obviously, Iheanacho got a couple of goals, but I thought it was one of Jamie Vardy's quieter games, and it was definitely Martial and Greenwood were pretty quiet. But that midfield for Leicester just looked exceptional. And I don't want to make any excuses for United because, quite frankly, it was a diabolical performance. But it did feel like that Europa League match against Milan really caught up with them pretty quickly. A lot of players looked very, very leggy. And it was... I don't want to hammer Ollie for changing the team around, because that team out on the Leicester field should have been able to put in a better performance than they did. But I'm not overly convinced about resting Luke Shaw, Bruno Fernandes for a quarter-final of a cup game when you've got an international break coming up. It's pretty frustrating, for sure. Having said that, if you put it into wider context for Manchester United, you know, it's been a pretty decent couple of weeks, beating Manchester City, going through against Milan in the Europa League, beating West Ham. This is just a very, very disappointing performance, and a lot of individuals in that Manchester United side really let themselves down yesterday, I thought.
Yeah, we'll come back to those individuals in just a second, because I want to frame it in a slightly different way to you. Before that, I want to get Zach's opinion on what you thought went right for Leicester. Obviously, Joe's touched upon that lovely double pivot. Is there anyone else you want to shout out, or do you want to elaborate on Ndidi and Tielemans' performance, Zach?
Yeah, Ndidi and Tielemans were probably two of the better players, but the guy that's man of the match for them, especially recently, has got to be Iheanacho. In a time where Jamie Vardy, since his injury, hasn't really come back and done what we expect Jamie Vardy to do and score all these goals. Iheanacho's came back and scored 8 in the last 4, which is a really good record for a striker that I think we all thought maybe he just still wasn't even cut out for Leicester after kind of not making it at Manchester City. He was always the guy on the bench. When he came on, never really took his chance, but recently has stepped up for them, especially when they're a Leicester side that are still missing key players. James Maddison isn't there. Justin's injured. Pereira at right back. Some of their key stars, and he's been able to come up and really help them. during this tough period, because it's not been an easy set of fixtures for them either. Again, this United game for them going through is huge. They'll be looking, and they've also now pulled the kind of easier side of the tie per se for a route to the final if they beat Southampton. So they'll be buzzing. But I mean, Joe kind of mentioned the other two as well, in Ndidi and Tielemans. Tielemans had a ridiculous game. One of the best I think I've seen him play in a Leicester shirt, and he's. If they are able to keep hold of him, because I'm pretty sure if a top six side wanted to maybe have a look at him, and offer the right amount, they might be able to pry him away from Leicester, because he's a central midfielder, because he's still, who's ridiculous and so talented and still super young as well. It'd be interesting to see whether he starts in the Euros for Belgium too in the upcoming months. But Leicester in general weren't necessarily unbelievable. But those three players I thought were...
I thought Leicester were as close to unbelievable as that I've seen them this season yesterday. I thought that was one of their best performances of the season.
Better than Liverpool?
I can't remember which Liverpool game are you talking about?
When they beat Liverpool at home.
I actually think it's a really emphatic performance from Leicester, so I disagree in that sense, especially when you consider the amount of rotation still going on in the side. Like you pointed out, Jalab, missing a couple key players with... Perez at number 10. He's not a number 10. I'm not quite sure what he is. Probably more of a winger than a number 10. But Michael Brighton at right wing back as well. Shout out to the energy he brings to the side. 3 key passes he put up yesterday, which I believe was a team high. So you look at that Leicester starting 11, and I think it's a nod to the system that Brendan Rodgers has instilled, right? That they can be that dominant against the Manchester United side, which yes, there was an element of rotation as well, but was still pretty strong. And just to touch upon what you said about Tielemans, I think it'd have to be an exceptional project to lure Tielemans away from Leicester right now, right? Because it looks like, third position is nailed on. They do have a tough run in. Their final 3 games are all against top 6 opposition. But if they can get a result against Manchester City, the next 3-4 games after that are fairly winnable. It's at home. If they can get a point from Manchester City, that would set them up really well for what is, like I said, an easy run-in towards their final fixtures. But Kelechi Iheanacho, I think he's 8 goal contributions, not goals, in his last 4 matches, contributing to one every 75 minutes. What a turnaround it's been from him. If you can think of a better comeback, let us know in the comments below. But anyway, let's bring this back to Manchester United, because I want to round this section off by getting your thoughts, Tomlinson, on who United should get rid of and who they should bring in come the summer. I think it's fairly obvious where most of your funds are going to go, at least from the outside looking in. Right wing, centre forward, of course, the Haaland and Sancho rumours persist, don't they? I know you think they might go after a centre back, and Kwande's been linked pretty relentlessly as well. But I want you to pick 3 players, and I'm talking rotation options here. I don't want you to throw in any sort of left field suggestions like Lingard, for example. I want you to get rid of 3 fairly prominent players and bring in 3 players from outside the traditional top 6 plus Leicester. What I'm asking you to do here is be a super smart director of football and maybe pick up some bargains which you think are going to improve United. Because a lot of people are moaning about United's squad depth. That's basically what I want to address here.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, United can't afford to sell any of the fringe players. Like, the squad is so thin. Beyond the first 11, it's just harrowing. I've got the squad list up in front of me here, and there's just nowhere to sell. It's a tough question to answer. Obviously, Phil Jones, got to go. Sergio Romero,
we'll take Phil Jones.
Got to go. I'd probably say, if we want a slightly bigger name, Nemanja Matic, this might be his last summer. Yeah, but we know Edinson Cavani is very unlikely to renew. The midfield is just incredibly thin. I'm struggling to sell anyone, I'll be honest with you, because I just don't think United can afford to, other than the names I've already suggested. In terms of signings, are we talking realistic or are we talking dream? Are we talking like I can go out and spend...
No, I want you to be realistic, because I feel like the dream signing comes in the forward department, right?
So that kind of rules out a Pedro Neto, rules out a Declan Rice, it rules out an Ezri Konsa, a Jack Grealish. Goodness gracious.
Souček.
He would cost an unbelievable amount of money and doesn't suit the way we play football at all. Have you got any suggestions, either of you two?
I quite like Pedro Neto and Declan Rice. I know they would cost a pretty penny, but I think we can
150 million out for both of those two.
Yeah, I think we can settle
chance.
on them. If you're gonna slash the wage bill by getting Cavani off it, if you're gonna get an okay fee for Lingard, maybe. If you're gonna sell, Phil Jones. Well, no, who's buying Phil Jones? Absolutely no one.
Ezri Konsa would be a good pickup for Manchester United, but it's just would cost too much money, mate. Jack Grealish, too much money.
Should we settle on Ezri Konsa, Declan Rice, and Pedro Neto then? I think
you do. That's a good summer. That's a great summer.
That's a great summer.
Unrealistic summer though. It's never ever happening.
That might come at the cost of one of those dream signings in the forward department. But then again, Haaland and Sancho are probably going to go elsewhere, aren't they? So
Sancho will probably cost less than Declan Rice.
Woof. That would be awful. On that note, let's end this section by hearing from Ollie, who echoes Joe's sentiments that the recent calendar cost United in this fixture.
Everyone could see that we weren't really as sharp as we've normally been, that we have been lately. So the accumulation of games, maybe, as I've said, is a factor here.
All winners this week then come from Donahue_Moss, and it is Brighton with Graham Potter's men coming up trumps in a relegation 6-pointer against Newcastle. Now, this was definitely the highest stakes game, wasn't it, in the Premier League this match week, especially with Fulham losing back-to-back fixtures. Bruce and Potter both knew that a win here would create a buffer, so to speak, with a game in hand to boot. Joe, were Brighton good value for their 3-0 win in this game?
Yeah, I think so. Far better than Newcastle, but I think we all knew that coming into the game. I don't know a single person who didn't think Brighton were going to win this game comfortably. And
Brighton fans probably.
They're not the most unbelievable side, so that just summarises how horrendous Newcastle are at the moment. And it is unbelievably bad. I cannot believe Steve Bruce is still in a job after this weekend. I really can't, because they are still in the power position, Newcastle, to stay in the Premier League. And even a 2-game bump from a new manager would probably be enough to keep them there next season. I'm seriously surprised. Brighton, I'm not surprised about, though. We know they're a pretty decent team. If they take their chances, they win games. It's just they haven't been able to do that consistently enough this season. And the 2 goals they scored from Trossard and Welbeck are absolutely fantastic goals. Probably, we talked about Brighton's XG across the course of the season. Those goals are probably valued at 0.1, 0.2. They're fantastic strikes. So hats off to Brighton, but unsurprising, Newcastle, absolutely disgraceful. And the fans deserve more. Yeah,
it's a pretty patchwork Brighton side as well. I think Pascal Gross is playing right wing back. Joel Veltman, the left side of the back 3. Jacob Murder making his first start from, I don't know, they went from a Polish side, didn't they? But he's only 21. He played on the left-hand side. He was pretty handy in this game.
And Neil Maupay.
Yeah, he had some really good chances early on, didn't he? And Neil Maupay bagged his first goal in 11 appearances. So, like Joe said, Brighton came up trumps in this game, and I think the XG was actually around 1 to Newcastle's 0.03. So 3-0 maybe flattered them, but Brighton don't really deserve to be flattered in various fixtures, don't they? Zach, just how bad were Newcastle then, mate? Highlight where it all went wrong, if it ever got started in the first place.
Everywhere. Every single position. Maybe the goalkeeper was okay. It's so bad. I mean, just echo what Joe was saying. I don't know how Newcastle fans can watch that and then still see Steve Bruce in that dugout. It's ridiculous compared to the side that got promoted with Rafa, because these were the 2 teams that got promoted in the same season, Newcastle and Brighton, and look where they both are now. They're miles apart. Apart. No, at least with Brighton, you look and you go, there's Graham Potter. He's playing a football philosophy which eventually will hopefully lead to success. You look at the football Newcastle are playing and you go, what? It just looks relegation bound. I mean, their last game of the season is against Fulham, and I would not be surprised if that game is the one that decides it. And I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouths, but I think we can all agree that Fulham is probably the team would rather stay in the Premier League for football philosophy wise.
But I think that only depends on Steve Bruce still being there next season. If they brought in a different manager, then would we all still say that? I'm not so sure. Sure.
But the interesting question there then is, fellas, and I'll pitch this to you, Zach, first. Who comes in? Because I don't really trust Mike Ashley to go out and hire an innovative manager
it's going to be
breaks the mold of who he's hired before, right? I think only Rafa Benitez has come from mainland Europe, in the 10 years that Mike Ashley has reigned over the club, and lo and behold, he had the highest win percentage. He keeps hiring different versions of the same English manager.
Oh yeah, it will be an English manager. Like, come on, let's be serious. Unless the takeover happens in the summer, which, I've heard rumours of it starting again, but you hear rumours of it all the time. Like, would you be surprised if Eddie Howe took the job because he's not seemingly getting another one?
Yeah, but that would be such a step up on Steve Bruce right now. Like just because he's English doesn't mean that would be a bad appointment. Like him and Chris
100%.
Wilder would both do much better jobs than Steve Bruce is doing right now.
And also the players that are there at the moment. I don't think Newcastle's squad is that great at all. I mean, look at their record signing. Joel Linton's so bad, and then they got and then the guy that comes off from the bench is Andy Carroll, who's on a pay-to-play contract and is probably one of the worst strikers in the Premier League. It's really rough.
Joel Linton lined up on the right wing in this game, as in. I think the question there is Steve Bruce getting the most out of the current talent in his squad? And I'd be hard pressed to agree. Like, he's a lovely guy, doesn't deserve the personal flack he's getting. But when you, and obviously they were decimated by injuries at the turn of the year, but you look at how he's using some of the existing personnel, and Joel Linton didn't even have a shot yesterday. They had 3 shots against Brighton, and Brighton don't concede an awful amount of shots even against good sides, but 3 is, like Joe said, is just, it's the death knell, isn't it? Anyway, let's round this off by, going back to what Tomlinson said about Mike Ashley backing Steve Bruce post this result, because it looks like he's going to be here till the end of the season.
Welcome back to Goals on Sunday. First, some breaking news to bring you, and that is that Mike Ashley is intending to stick by manager Steve Bruce despite last night's demoralising defeat to Brighton. Loud calls for the Newcastle boss to be sacked reached a crescendo overnight following the dismal showing. For the 3rd time this season, fans protested outside St James's Park with banners following the defeat.
Our losers of the week then, a little bit of a different one this week, and it comes from Speedy Boys, and he's put West Ham or Arsenal. And I think what he means here is that this game deserved the winner, but we'll roll with it. Of course, West Ham fans will feel harder done by, I guess, out of the 2 sets of fans, given the side surrendered a 3-goal lead, scoring 2 own goals in the process. Joe, I didn't watch the game. Was it the best match of the weekend?
Yeah, comfortably. It's a rare event that you see a Premier League game with more than 2 goals at this stage of the season, by the way, where everybody's legs have just totally run out. But this was a bit of a stunner, wasn't it? Some of the goals that were scored in this game were absolutely fantastic as well, by the way. The Jesse Lingard opener is a stunner, and shock, horror, a player that everybody wrote off and called absolute rubbish on Twitter isn't rubbish. Like, Jesse Lingard is still a very, very solid player. And if West Ham can get him on a permanent transfer, massively improves that David Moyes side. And obviously Arsenal started like utter shit in this game, didn't they? I don't want to again call
Monday Night Football material.
I think that those Europa League games, anybody who's played in the Europa League really does struggle the weekend coming up, like the subsequent game week, because the team they're playing against is very unlikely to have played midweek. And I think those extra few days off make a massive difference at this stage of the season, especially in this sort of pandemic world we're living in where there's a game every 3 days. I really do, because the first half from Arsenal was just absolutely disgraceful. And I think Arteta said as much after the game. There was very, very few positives.
Yeah.
In the second half, they look a much better side, and you can start to see some of the patterns of play that Arteta's trying to implement. Odegaard looks a lot better. I actually thought Lacazette took his goal really well, even though there was a slight deflection, wasn't there, off Craig Dawson, the first one, that is. If it went down as his or not, I'm not too sure.
It went down as Dawson. Don't you worry about it, mate.
It went down as a Dawson own goal.
Yeah, ruined my bet.
When you actually, a little bit harsh, but
when you see it from the other angle, it's going miles wide.
Yeah, I thought the touch is fantastic, though, to bring it down in that tight little space. And then after the break, they're a lot better. But let's face it, West Ham probably should have won this game. If Mikel Antonio can score from 3 inches, they win this game. And I think David Moyes will be pretty disappointed. But nevertheless, it's another good result for the top 4 as they stand right now, that are looking pretty set at the moment, it has to be said, even though Tottenham did pick up 3 points against Villa.
Yeah, just to sprinkle a few numbers on your observations there. The 5th goal for Jesse Lingard in 7 starts. Antonio, of course, clocked up 2 assists in this fixture, which brings him to 12 goal involvements in just 18 starts. So the forward men for West Ham are doing bits for them at the moment. There's also one giant man in midfield that was everywhere in this game, Zach. Is he, if we're on the same wavelength here, the other standout player for you in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like any game you talk about West Ham now, he comes up, and it's a real credit to West Ham's recruitment team as well for finding him and getting the deal done. Souček's just an animal. He's an animal, and he's a player who I'd be very interested maybe see him play on another side and whether it would work quite as well, because the midfield of him and Rice is just perfectly matched, and it's so...
He's Moyes' spirit animal, mate. He can't go anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. He's the Fellaini.
Yeah.
He's the 21st century Fellaini now. But yeah, he's just so dominant at everything he does, and not only aerially for defensive and attacking output, but also like putting in tackles. He made 5 tackles during the game, which is a ridiculous stat. Yeah, he was on the score sheet for West Ham by a little deflection from Antonio's shot, and then also putting one in his own net and going down as an own goal as well. It's ridiculous that West Ham scored 5 of the 6 goals in this game. But Declan Rice also did pretty well. Joe mentioned Jesse Lingard. I think he was obviously much better probably in the first half. But he was he seems to have just had a new life at West Ham in the London Stadium. It's really, really, really good to see. Defensively, West Ham weren't that great, and I think I also saw a lot of Hammers fans on Twitter saying that the referee was seemed to be wearing an Arsenal shirt underneath. I don't know if I can quite agree with that just as much, but yeah, I mean, definitely game of the weekend, 100%. A brilliant game to watch, and they were West Ham's kind of star players. And then Odegaard for Arsenal. Odegaard, I mean, if Arsenal can get a deal across for Odegaard, because I know he said that he doesn't want to go on loan again, he just wants to stay at one club. If they can get that across for them in the summer, that'd be ridiculous. Yeah,
I think the only more productive player since his arrival in the forward third, in the final third even, has been Smith Rowe, right? I think he's averaging around 1.8 key passes per night this term. Pretty impressive, given that he's still fairly new to life in the Premier League. And it's just as well that, that Chambers played well in this game, that he played well, that West Ham scored a couple own goals, because Arsenal not productive in the final third, at least Aubameyang and Saka. I mean, 0 shots, 0 key passes for Aubameyang. I think
Saka should have scored.
Yeah, Saka was hauled off around the hour mark, wasn't he? He fared a little bit better. He had a couple of shots and laid on 1 chance for his teammates, but still nowhere near their potent best, and that is probably to do with fatigue, right? Yeah, worth noting that West Ham made a little tactical tweak here. They did go 4-2-3-1. I think everyone thinks of them as a 3 at the backside, almost on a permanent basis, but it's been pretty 50-50 with that formation and a 3-4-3 as well. And yeah, it produced 31 shots in this game. I think this was West Ham trying to be a bit more adventurous, trying to take the game to Arsenal, and they succeeded at least for the first half, right? But we'll forgive them, given the circumstances, for ceding all 3 points. But let's move on to moment of the weekend then, to finish off today's show. And of course, you guys are going to pick one of these 3 as per usual. So the first suggestion comes from JH_Eclipt, and he's put moment of the weekend is definitely Sevilla's keeper equalising in their last La Liga fixture. The next suggestion comes from Charlie, who's gone for Ndombele's Beyblade skills to glide past like 4 Villa players. I assume that's the builder you were talking about, Zach, coming up clutch there in the dying embers of the show. And Alan Hayden VB has put that free kick, you know the one. I think he means the free kick scored by the Lorient player in their Ligue 1 game. Let's do this quickly, because it sounds like Zach is someone's chiseling through his wall. What are we going for, guys?
Free kick's great. I'll go Bono. Great, love seeing a keeper score. The free kick is ridiculous, though.
Yeah, okay. Keeper scoring, Joe?
It has to be that free kick. That's a potential Puskas winner.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous the way that ball just picks up speed and dips at the same time. I'm going to go for that as well. So, Zach, you've been outvoted. It is the free kick. Let's wrap this show. We didn't do a sub push in this program, so if you're not subscribed to Football Daily and you've made it to the very end of this show, then you might as well subscribe, eh? And if you enjoyed this, then go and check out our latest explained video on how to fix VAR. Zach, what's going on Snapchat?
Well, I'll record today's one about Neymar being used on Tinder once this guy's gone. because I'm not going to be the best episode otherwise. Yeah, just come over to Snapchat. You will not regret it.
Get him involved. Get him in the actual Snapchat. Joe, anything to plug?
Well, you can watch Transfer Talk Snapchat if you don't want to hear about Neymar and Tinder, because that's going to be about Harry Kane leaving Tottenham. Of course, David Ornstein dropping that pretty heavy bomb yesterday on Sky Sports News that Harry Kane wants to leave the club. So I thought we'd catch up on that.
Absolutely. Big news. I think we'd all love to see him leave Tottenham. A polite reminder that if you want to take advantage of our deal with Manscaped, then click the link in the description below or use the code on screen right now. Bye-bye.